good morning, everybody, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is your Wednesday wrap-up. And, of course, I am here with Mr. U and Herb. How you doing, gentlemen? Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Might be the only thing that gets me through the day.
That's where I'm at right now.
That's right. And if you're watching and are a coffee company, please sponsor our show.
Please.
Put it inside here.
Yes.
I'll probably drink it.
Talking about being promoted all morning long, that's us. We got you.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if you want to send us some mugs that have your logo on it, it'd be just fine.
Yes.
Get in my belly.
Oh, man. So over this last week, Cameron Sutton finally gets what his suspension is going to be. 8-game suspension. Not a big shock. His court case settles. But, for anybody watching that doesn't remember exactly what happened, he signed a 3-year, $33 million deal with the Lions last year. Spent the bulk of his career early on with the Steelers. He ends up with this domestic violence charge, ends up evading police for, what was it? Like
2 weeks, right?
Yeah, something like that, like 24 days, I think, something like that. So I think that has more to do with the length of the suspension than the domestic violence portion. And that's really just an indictment on the NFL. Because if we've seen anything on domestic violence charges when it comes to players, the NFL doesn't really care unless there's a video involved.
Right.
So I would imagine that the 8-game suspension weighs more on the evading police end of it than anything else. But the Lions went ahead and released him soon as he was, evading apprehension from the police. And they gave him a post-June 1st designation. So they're going to split the cap hit over, a couple of seasons. And he goes back to the Steelers. Steelers pick him up. Obviously, they were ready for him to have a suspension. It just interesting situation as it comes down.
Yeah.
I remember him fondly. He's officially known as the bane of my existence in my fantasy leagues. Late round draft pick in our defense leagues. Can count on him for 25 tackles and an interception. Now we can count on him for something else. Once I saw that thing about the Steelers picking him back up, I thought it was a typo. So I went to other places just to make sure I didn't read that wrong. Y'all knew what was going on. This is what kind of makes me that's nerve-wracking about the NFL. What we willing to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It amazes me, man. I mean, like you said about the video,
yep.
It's funny, but it's not funny. It's like, because it's really true. There's no video. If there's no car chase in the Bronco, nobody cares. Go ahead and give that man a little break and let him come back and play again. I'm like, this is a horrible message. I hate this. I really do.
The best example I ever saw, and why I have that feeling of the NFL where they just don't care unless there's a video, and that's only because of public outcry. Otherwise, I don't think they'd care at all anyway.
Right.
Is the Ray Rice situation.
Oh, God. That's what I was thinking. I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
Until that video came out, they were talking about like a 1-game suspension.
Right.
Right. And then the video comes out, and it is absolutely brutal. So then public outcry forced their hand to actually do something. But
right.
I mean, it didn't change what happened. It just meant that the public saw it because the NFL saw it from the jump.
Right.
The NFL was like, whatever. But then it got publicly released, and then they're like, oh, I guess it's bad. So, I mean, clearly there's a precedent from the NFL to not really do anything. And of course, this segment will probably make it so I can never work an NFL game. But
going out in a blaze of glory, buddy.
Right. But at the same time, I mean, unless it's something that damages their brand, right? Like they're all about protecting their shield. That's why they don't, they go down hard on gambling, stuff like that. But when it's domestic violence, they're like, we like people that hit people.
Yeah. And this now go ahead.
I just need a little bit of help here. So that we see this stuff a lot, and it's like we are seeing it a lot, and it's not funny. It's really happening a lot. Like you said, the NFL is not doing a whole lot. But my question is, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this because I'm looking at. I don't know a lot about what's happened here. I know about him because I watched him play. Like I said, he was in my fantasy league. He got me 3 points, which is like nothing, But I mean, I followed his game. But I'm looking at. I don't know. He's not contesting the suspension, so that obviously means that he down with what's actually happened.
Right.
Well, some of that I think is.
I guess you can say. I'm
some
assuming.
of him not. Let me jump in on that part real quick. Some of him not trying to appeal it is to just get those games out of the way, because even if he shortens it, it may be deeper into the season before he gets to play. So he may get to play week 1 and then the suspension would start, and then say he gets it reduced to 7 games or it doesn't get reduced at all. Now it kind of lengthens the timeline. And, if it's a situation where you're going to get suspended regardless, you might as well just, you know what, I'll take the 8. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think about Rashid Rice for some reason. He comes to my mind for some reason. I don't know why. But
I got you.
His comments is what kind of gets me. Yeah, he had a lot of comments. He had a lot to say, which is unusual for somebody in his position. He had like 3 paragraphs of things he wanted to say. I just grabbed a few pieces of it, but he talked about his foundation and his morals and how important it is for him to be an individual as a human being and what you stand on it that matters, and not the narrative and what people have to say, and not justifying himself to the fans. I'm like, you avoided the cops for 3 weeks. Now I used to live in an area where they're talking about. I know about the Hillsborough County shit. I know about all that. You know what I'm saying? So you out there hiding out for 3 weeks.
Choke the chick out, right? Like,
I
didn't do that.
Battery by strangulation. Like, this was not,
I'm saying,
not that any of them is better, but you were sitting there on top of somebody.
Right. That wasn't just like
that's why I didn't know about that part.
You were actively.
Yeah, no, that's what it was. It was battery by strangulation. It started off as a felony, then they reduced charges. And, like you said, he hid out for at least a couple weeks before turning himself in. And there was no question who was, they're like, hey, here's a warrant. He was like, yeah, I heard about it. There was no oh, I didn't know they were after me sort of situation. No, they, the stuff didn't get reduced, I think, until they had him in and they talked to him, whatever. But that's how it started off. It was something even more serious than what he ended up with. Which by the way, if I evaded arrest for 2 weeks on a felony charge, we wouldn't be talking about me anymore. Nobody else is hiring me to do so. It doesn't even make sense. Plus, my charge isn't getting reduced either. So
any of us doing that, we're just in jail. That's all that is. They're not messing around.
My point?
The Lions only found out about it because he just randomly showed up to the facility to work out, and that's how they ended up hearing about it. So, then they're like, "Oh yeah, you should probably get counsel and turn yourself in."
Right? Probably. No, I mean, finish your workout first, but then you should definitely go handle this.
Right.
Be in shape.
Hey, you'll be able to work out still, so it'll be fun. Yeah. You'll come out ready to rock.
Yeah.
I mean, so you talk about over 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You're hiding from the police because you're not going places where you think you're going to be found. You're hiding for over 3 weeks. You talk about your morals and your foundation and not trying to be worried about a narrative. This is.
I mean, if those are the good morals,
where are we? Where are we right now? Is it just me?
No. So the reason why I joke about it is because I feel like I'm like, none of this makes any kind of sense. It's like this is not real life at all. You know what I mean? Because this is not how any of this should have played out. Okay. You get called to a house for strangulation, battery by strangulation. That should be it for the person. And then they hide out for 2 weeks. Any normal person is done. That's why I make jokes about it, because I'm like, the whole NFL situation is a joke. Then you wait and you see it, and then you're like, all right, guess what? Miss half the season. Okay. I mean, your career's not over. You're still going to be able, it doesn't make sense on some of this.
Most at 24 days, man. You had bills that was due before you got picked up.
Right?
You had a whole brand new billing cycle that took place before you got picked up. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And it's not like you didn't know. It's not one of those I was in another country and this happened and I flew. No, it was no,
you were in Hillsborough County.
Yeah,
you know what?
I'm just hiding.
That much to do out there in Hillsborough County. I'm just telling you that because I know.
Yeah, I mean, like,
you were hiding out at somebody's house in Hillsborough.
I could even get it. Like if it was one of those, you got caught by a traffic cam, you didn't know that you had a ticket, and then you got that bench warrant that you didn't know about.
Right.
I could get down with that. There's zero chance you didn't know. I mean, it was all over the TV that they were looking for him, social media. I mean, their police department was putting stuff out on Twitter trying to find him. I mean,
ain't nowhere in the world he didn't know, especially in Florida. If anything, I ain't gonna do it. Let me just tell you that if you live in or have lived in the Tampa area and you did anything wrong, you were on something. I'm just telling you that. You were in the Tampa Tribune, you were on the news stations, you were on something, because that's all they did. The news was always full of that.
I mean, we've all seen Florida, man. The person doing the thing was probably on something also.
Yeah. Come on, man. You knew what was going on. This is crazy, man.
It is. But you're hearing about it more and more, like because he said at the start, man. We just these happen, and then it's like the NFL's figuring out how do we need to address this before somebody, is anybody going to get mad? Oh, you saw a video, everybody's mad. Oh, he's evading this. Oh, no video. We can get away with it. It's like it's a ridiculous.
And that's the case here, is there's no video.
That's just crazy to me.
That's why I say the only reason it's as long as it is because of the evading police. Because if it was just the domestic violence, I bet it'd be 1 or 2 games.
Yeah.
So maybe,
which is sad in and of itself, though.
I have a question.
I said that's sad all on its own right there, though.
Oh, no question. Yeah.
I have a quick question. So we say the NFL, exactly who we talking about? I want to just hear it in my ear. Who we talking about that we say the NFL doesn't do this and NFL's closing their eyes to this, and who we talking about exactly?
So in this scenario, we are kind of talking about Goodell.
Yeah.
Because his job, which whether you love Goodell or not, he is incredibly good at his job, which is to bring money in and protect the owners. Like that's his job. And when you think of the commissioners in all the leagues, he's probably the best one. Again, whether you hate him or like him or whatever, he has helped mold the NFL into the juggernaut that it is. So, but at the same time, his job is to keep talent on the field. So if he can finesse their, multi-billion-dollar company to keep people on the field, they will. That's why when there's not a video, they're like, nobody will see it. They'll forget about it in a couple of weeks because people get distracted by cat videos. So the attention span is about 2 seconds. As long as there's not a video that keeps popping up in their reels, it'll just kind of under the rug by mid-season. And I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, that's his job. So ultimately it comes down to Goodell. I mean, if you remember a couple years ago, he ended up having the deciding, not deciding vote, but he's the enforcer of the league, right? Which is how Brady ended up with the suspension he did. It was just like, it comes down to me anyway, even though they had that outside arbitrator come in, right? And then
I remember that.
It didn't go quite the way the league wanted, so he just levied his own thing anyway. So at the end of the day, he has full reign of what the NFL does. And the owners trust him because his track record says he takes care of the brand and makes them a lot of money. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, that's what you want as your CEO. Like, if you owned a company and you were appointing a CEO, you'd want a guy that would protect your brand, bring in a ton of money, and when bad things happen, find a way to make them go away. That's exactly the dude you want.
Yeah. Unfortunately, but yeah. And then, like you said, kind of the beginning, it's interesting which crimes we punish and don't punish. And, hey, if you're in the building and you've bet on something that's not NFL, we're still upset at you, and you're going to get, you can get up to 6 games or whatever, but strangulation's at 8. So I'm like, I don't understand, what is going on here. So especially we could prove, hey, we know you didn't bet on NFL or any of the games here, but I don't know, you're betting on college lacrosse, but you were on our building, So standing under our billboard that promotes gambling,
it's their main sponsors.
Yeah. What we're trying to tell you is we can make money on this. You can't.
That's right.
Just try to stay out of trouble. So I don't get any of it.
Yeah, it all falls on the protect the brand, right?
Yeah.
If they think people are rigging the games, that hits the bottom line. So that's where they have a problem.
Yep.
If it's an individual player, they're like, we were a league before you got here. We'll be a league after you're gone. That's the way they look at that.
I wish that Goodell had young children, young daughters. I want that for him in this era. I want her to tug on her daddy's shirt and say, "Daddy, that man is that man bad? He do something wrong? What can you
define wrong?
What can you do? Can you help? Can you help the lady that got choked out? Can you help her?" And
he'll just be like, "Look at them stats. He is a bad man."
Yeah. Sad. Sad.
I'm done, man. I'm ready to move him.
Yeah.
So speaking of hilarious things, we got Dable out there saying he can run a 7-second 40. And I thought you'd appreciate this one because, maybe he's going to be your receiver one. You guys got so many holes to fill.
No. They got neighbors. He'll be receiver 2.
He's your slot guy.
Oh, no, y'all crazy, man. I lost your mind.
Can you imagine it? Daniel Jones and Drew Lock stop back, wait for him to get out of his break, taking a minute.
There's not a spot for him on this walk.
They're stretching. They're like, "Hey guys, this route's for Dable, so we're gonna need you to block for a good 10 seconds."
Get out of his break. He's gonna be just taking a break. Is all it's gonna be.
There's not a spot for him on this roster.
Well, I just figure because he's probably going to get fired, he's just looking for that next career path.
You had a chance to get fired. You got a chance to stay. But just like I said, off the air, I know we got to have fun with it and everything. And this is like, camp and everything. But honestly, I'm on edge because this can go a lot of different ways. I did a couple of shows where I was doing a prediction. I would ask to predict the season, and it's literally I kind of felt the same way in 2022, and it kind of bared out. Last year, we talked about it. There was five games on this schedule where they lost by 5 points or less.
Yeah. So
that tells me that you're looking at a 10-win season, even with an atrocious O-line and a whole battery of other issues going on, especially at quarterback. So, now you're talking about 2024, where I feel like they've improved in 2 specific areas. Is it enough? Not for me, because we're already kind of traumatized, so we need to have way more improvement than just some incremental stuff. I need to see some wholesale changes, but we have improved in specific areas, specifically the O-line, and of course that wide receiver with Neighbors coming in from LSU. So, and then the tight end, I love Theo Johnson a lot. I'm almost in love with the man, but there's a lot going on there. Like we did at the backup position of running back, just a lot of stuff has improved, but it's like just the focus can't be on stuff like this. I'm sorry, I can't invest in this. I'm like, we have almost a 10-year, about a 10-year stretch of 9 or 10 years of utility when it really didn't have to be. We brought in these bums out here trying to be GMs and coaches for us that had no business in that position. No business, nothing. There was no pedigree, nothing. That said, you know what? You are a great fit for this. It never should have happened. And then the finances, the same idiots, and they're messing with the money.
Yeah.
I said what I said, dude.
I just don't like when you hold back like this. I'd rather just see your true emotions come through.
And you messed up our financial timeline for years. We're just starting to get that right. What, a year and a half ago? We're starting to get that right. And then you had a good season in 2022 when you probably should not have. And you gave a big contract out to somebody you shouldn't have gave one out to. And now we're sitting here talking about 40-yard dashes. Sorry, man. I got other fish to fry out here. I got problems out here. I'm like, are we gonna be relevant in the league where the whole league is waiting for it to be relevant? They're sitting there waiting for us. The NFC East is waiting for us to be relevant.
I mean, to be
They
fair,
wanted to compete and fight and have battles against the Cowboys better than a 40 to zip week 1 game. They wanted to compete. We sitting there waiting for us right here on the plate. Say, come on, Giant, come on, get back into this, make the league better. We're talking about a 40-yard dash, man. This man can't.
All things being equal, I liked that contract situation just because it was hilarious.
Yeah.
In the way of you have Saquon, who really carried that team, and your GM comes down. He's like, "All right, I got this big check. Let's see, you did a lot of work, so I'm gonna pay the ball boy." Like, I'm just like, what is that?
So is that what we're doing? We're talking about Barkley versus Jones. Is that what we're talking about? Because I don't know if it's as simple as that. I feel as though that money probably didn't make sense in the moment. Right now, it probably looks like a bargain compared to what people are going to be getting right now. But I didn't think it was necessary. I think he should have.
I would have made him play out another year.
That's what I'm getting ready to say. I've seen other teams do it. It made sense. I'm not sure if Justin Fields is a good example there, but I've seen other situations where it made sense. Let him play Jordan Love. Let him play to the 5th, and let's make sure it's not an anomaly.
Well, that's the thing.
He hasn't done enough to
pay anyone that's had one good year, especially if it's the contract year. Like
exactly.
You haven't proven anything to me.
Yeah,
you have to have that other year to say, you know what? Let's just make sure it's not a fluke or an anomaly. Let him. That just makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying you're gonna take that money and give it to Broccoli either.
Yeah,
let's be honest. I'd rather find somebody off the street that is.
I wouldn't have paid Barkley just because of his injury history. I would have worked harder to keep him in the building, though. Like, maybe I wouldn't have gave him what he wanted, and maybe he still leaves.
What you wanted him to do? What you wanted him to do?
No,
he got a contract. I don't care what they're talking about. He got a contract offer. He just didn't like it.
No. The second
guarantee money probably the reason why, but he didn't like it.
This last year is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the year before.
Okay.
This last year, I don't know that they could have paid him enough to stay. I think there was enough bad blood there because it didn't sound like their offer was that much different.
Right.
So at that point, there was enough bad blood that it was like, you're either going to way overpay me or I'm out the door because, I'm done with it. But had it been the year prior and they gave him a decent offer, he'd still be a Giant.
I don't know. From the outsider, I don't mind them letting them walk like this past year. I get what you're saying. With they kind of spoiled it the year before. But at that point, I think last year with the other stuff they needed to fix, especially not knowing where quarterback is kind of going and wanting to make improvements on the line, I wouldn't have paid Barkley this last year. I'd have said, you know what,
me either.
This is kind of more of a transition year anyway. We need to figure out what we have. And I think they've made better improvements everywhere else without having to worry about that. Like running back wasn't going to be their make or break anyway. So
no, there's too many other questions. And besides, I mean, your running back's only as good as your line anyway.
Right.
Because if you're getting behind the line of scrimmage, I don't care how good of a running back you are, you're not going to do a lot and you're not going to win a lot of games. I mean, Barry Sanders is the best example of that. Probably one of the most elusive dudes to ever play the game. But that team was terrible.
Yeah.
And so when you watch old film of him, he was dodging 3 different dudes before he broke the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I mean, did he have an amazing amount of yardage? Sure. You know how he would have had a lot more if he had an offensive line or just dudes that fell in people's way.
At the end of the day, though, this is what I want for anybody that comes in, especially a coach and a GM whose futures are tied together. I want them to have a chance to be able to have their own, kind of go out on their own terms. And what I mean by that is that bring in your own guys, and if you're going to get fired, which you probably will because it happens to most coaches, you get fired because you hit with the guy that you brought in. Nobody can say, oh, because of this or because of that. Nothing outside of ancillary. Everybody knows this is why it happened. The quarterback I drafted, running back I brought in, et cetera, et cetera. This is a team full of people who came in from other places under different regimes. And to be honest, Dayball hasn't really gotten a chance to deal with that part. So I'm cool with that. But at the same time, there's a timeline on this. So I don't really know what it is because I think I lost track of how many years we're talking about so far that this has been going on. I think it's been about 3, but I'm not sure if it's been 2 or 3. But you only have 1 or 2 more left in you, in my humble opinion, where we are right now, based on me not knowing the numbers, how many years it's been. You got 1 or 2 more years left to bring in who you want and to make that team your own. If that doesn't happen, I want them both out of here.
Yeah,
both of you, because you came in together. Your goals out together.
Let me ask you.
Yes,
I think if they are really bad, it could happen after this season anyway.
And that's what I was going to say. Do you have a number in mind? Like, what's a number or a season that gets Dable fired this year?
5 wins.
You have to be at the same place you were last year to me, or less. I honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. I think just because what I said about last year's games and those 4 or 5 losses, I think it was about 5 losses. I think that was telling to me, because what it reminds me of the days of when Eli was quarterbacking. That O-line was ranked at the bottom for almost the entire time that they were there, right, and they still won Super Bowls. So it tells me that you can work around that situation.
Yeah, but you don't have that
right? Huh?
You don't have the caliber defense that they had.
No. I know. I'm just talking about the O-line right now, but don't get lost. all I'm saying is that a 6-win season this year, I don't see how it's going to work. It may not be a fireable offense, but to me, it's like that's enough to me. But her point, if you got a 6-win season, it's like you almost can't put it on Shane, excuse me, on Joe Shane. You got to put it on Dayball. He's gonna be the one that's gonna get the bullet first.
Definitely.
So it has to be less than that for both of them to get reevaluated. But I don't think it's gonna happen. I think they're gonna win more than 6 games. Will they win 10? I don't know. I see it on paper. I see that it could be possible. Some of the moves they made defensively, I think with Brian Burns coming inside there, that could be a game changing in game situations, late game situations that can change whether you get a W or L. So I think they'll do better than that. But to answer Herb's question, a number that will get both of them out, probably a 5 or 6 win season. That should be enough to say, you know what, we tried it, not working. But I don't think honestly, to be fair, it's not enough time. I think another year at least you have to give it, kind of no matter what happens, because Daniel Jones is what he is. I think it is. I don't know if he could do something spectacular. We've seen flashes of what he can do. He didn't get the name Danny Dimes for nothing. He got it for a flash or sample size of work. But
he needs a good running game to do that. Like he needs the play action to be able to create those situations. He doesn't have that hero ball in him, which is fine. As long as your team is built in a way to have that. I mean, you've seen average quarterbacks win Super Bowls. You just have to have talent around them.
Yeah. I like Tracy, and I like Singletary. I mean, I watched him in Buffalo. I like him. I don't know what is going to happen in this setup. Kind of hard to see. I'll let you know when I see some preseason stuff, trying to get some ideas. But I like him. But I don't know if this the kind of running game that's going to help Daniel Jones or not. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just foresee it
in the backfield. So I mean, they can do that. That helps to pass that in the backfield. I just don't know.
I guess I foresee a scenario where, like, Daniel Jones either doesn't come back or he's just, awful or whatever, and Locke isn't what they need, and they have a bad season, and then both guys are like, well, it was the quarterback situation that wasn't fixed, so it's not really, you know what I mean? Like one of those kind of scapegoat situations where you win 5 or 6 games and still keep your job because the attention is elsewhere.
If it goes down like that, then it's a scenario where maybe Dable keeps his and the GM
gets fired. Yeah.
I've never seen that would happen under something like this. What's the scenario again? GM gets fired and Dable keeps. How would that work?
It looks like a quarterback meltdown, because at that point, that is a GM talent acquisition issue, not a coaching problem.
Yeah.
Like if DJ comes out and is just terrible, I mean, you've seen GMs get fired and not a coach. Like it happens.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It does.
I'm saying right and wrong. That's not my prediction. What I'm saying is I could see that being one of those, like, who are we going to make this game? Because this happens. Everybody's together until they're not. And it comes to the end of the season and the quarterback is doing terrible. Dable's going to, because look, he looks like a bus thrower. He looks like, I don't care. As long as I keep my job, I will throw everybody else out there, even if it's halftime. So I could just see
he does have that look. He does have that look.
I mean,
that exit interview.
it is that Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other. They're just like, it was that guy.
And I could just see him say, well, we didn't get a good enough quarterback play, so I don't know what I was supposed to do. Like, I could just
The only
see
reason
that.
I mean, that's how Robert Saleh kept his job.
This is New York.
Yeah.
Only this is the X factor because this is New York. That's why I don't think the scenario is going to happen.
Okay.
They all may go first, or they both go, but I don't see the other scenario just because it's New York.
Okay.
And fans are already talking already. This is already a hot issue. Like,
it's exactly how Saleh kept his job, was because they went and grabbed Rodgers and he gets hurt, because you can bet if they had that type of year and Rodgers was playing, Saleh's fired. Yeah. Straight up.
Without question.
Yeah.
His seat is warm.
And that's kind of why I bring it up, situations like that. I just always feel like if the coach has an out, they're like, let me get one more season, because it's really not I couldn't have coached this. You know what I mean?
Or there's just ridiculous things like the Bears, where Eberflus has his job still.
Yeah. I don't get it.
What you going to do if they win 10 games, man? What you going to do? You going to be all right? Are you going to be shocked? Are you going to celebrate if the Bears win 10 games?
Am I going to celebrate?
What you going to do,
no.
man? You talking about the Bears a lot.
Both said, nah.
Not at all. No, I'm actually excited to see. No. I talk about the Bears because I don't know how that dude kept his job, but I am excited to see this division. Though.
Yeah,
that division is going to be fun to watch because all those teams have the potential to be good.
Yeah,
I mean the Lions, ton of talent, right? You got Green Bay that came on at the end of the year, so if they can keep on with that, that'll be interesting. The Vikings, just with the constant rotation of quarterbacks, we're still a good team. And then, of course, the Bears on paper should be good. Who knows what they're going to be, but on paper, they look like they should be decent. So, I mean, now you're looking at potentially one of the hardest divisions in the league, which, it's been a while since they had a group of teams that were all good.
I don't like Minnesota that much, but
no. Well, because I think the wide receiver core at Minnesota for sure. So you can I could just see you throwing stuff up at sometimes and scoring points just because I felt like a lot of times that's what Kirk Cousins did with Jefferson.
Well, and that defense, when you watched through the second half of the season, really came on because in the beginning they were getting gashed, but in the second half of the season, that defense played exceptionally well, especially when you think of the fact that each week you were like, I wonder who's playing quarterback.
Right.
So, I mean, they were able to hold that thing together. And if you want to attack them for only being decent in the second half, then we can't talk about Green Bay either then. Right. Or are we just doing double standard stuff? Yeah. Because they were god awful to start the season. Yeah. So, I mean,
that division could just be very, very strange.
I'm just talking about Aaron Donald. That's it.
No, I just think the receivers are good enough because Jefferson can make a bad quarterback look good. So, and I think you saw at times with Kirk Cousins, it was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me just toss it up, and Jefferson's going to make it look really good. Obviously that wasn't all the time, but I'm thinking about what was it like the Buffalo game and the fourth down play, and just let me just throw it up and have him wrestle a ball from a cornerback, that he really should not get this ball from, and just kind of do that stuff regularly, So but I'm just thinking I could see it, but I could also see like, hey, the Vikings are on a 5-game losing streak. I could see that one too, and Sam Darnold's out here throwing left-handed passes for some reason. So I could see a wide array of things.
It's definitely possible, but I mean, at the end of the day, Darnold is going to be better than the Rocket Man that was throwing passes back there. Yeah. He's better than what their backup was. Those guys won games.
Did Dobbs stop by for a minute too?
That's what I'm saying. Like they still won games with those guys. You can't tell me that Darnold isn't better than those guys.
Yeah. I think he's gonna have flashes. He's gonna have one game where he goes for like 300 yards. You're like, oh, that's the Darnold we're looking for.
I'm excited to revisit the conversation when the season starts.
I'm not saying they're going to win their division or even be in the playoffs. I'm just saying it's going to be an interesting division.
Yeah, I feel like you're missing like that whole thing and thinking we're saying something that we're not.
Yeah, because we're not saying they're going to be good or competing for any playoff spots, but I think they will be a thorn in the side of that division.
Can't wait to see it.
You missed that whole thing. I can already tell by the smile. That's the I stopped listening.
I'm not.
I've seen that smile so many times. I'm like,
I'm happy with Sam Darnold. That's all we talk. That's all I'm talking about.
Me. I can tell.
I don't like Sam Darnold. I know you guys. I love you guys. I'm listening. I don't like Sam Darnold.
I've seen that smile so many times. I'm like, yeah.
I mean,
I'm seeing 6 and 11. That's what I'm seeing.
It could be your man JJ in there. Who knows? He could
Early?
show out
that early. I'd be shocked.
I wouldn't.
Who knows? He could show out during camp. Maybe he gets the start. Do the Russell Wilson route. He could be dude from day one. Who knows? Well, that we'll find out.
That would shock me, and I want that for him. Go blue, baby. But I don't see that happening. But okay, that'd be great.
I don't see it happening either. But I didn't see enough out of him in Michigan, just because they didn't ask him to do that much. Yep. Like that was a run heavy offense. I mean, nothing wrong with it.
I think that needs some time.
Yeah,
a little time would hurt him. So Darnold was going to be in there while he's taking time.
What's that?
Darnold will be playing while he's taking his time to learn.
Yeah, that's how it should be. Amen. I mean, realistic. Like I think most rookies should wait.
Especially I got them at the bottom of the division right now. That's the my little preseason rankings that they asked me to do on different shows. I got them at the bottom right now.
Yeah. And that's not what, like, if you asked me to rank the division, I would go Lions, Green Bay, Chicago, Minnesota. I'd be fine with that rankings. Nobody is arguing that point.
No, it's not actually what we were saying at all. Like, you can be the worst in your division and competitive. I mean, like, if your whole division is good.
It should be a good division, though.
Yeah. No, like,
competitive.
It should be a fun division to watch.
There should be quite a few good divisions in the NFL this season.
Mm-hmm.
The team I'm interested, right now. The team I'm interested to watch, just because of the dumpster fire it could potentially be, is the Cowboys, especially now that they're not getting any of these contracts done. Is you knew they
I don't even know what that even is anymore.
I know you're looking forward to this season for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because you knew they were going to take a step back because they were in serious cap trouble, all of that.
I did not know that because Jerry Jones told me they were all in. So I did not think they were taking a step back.
They were all in at the ATM and then realized, the numbers are red. Man, guess we're going home. So you knew they were going to take a step back because they couldn't pay guys, had to let them go, stuff like that. But now that they're not even getting any of these done, like you knew the Dak one probably wasn't going to happen just because they treated him exactly that way before.
Mm-hmm.
But you thought that the CeeDee Lamb one might, right? Yeah. Because he loves receivers. He loves flash, right? And you kind of thought the Parsons one would because he's the linchpin of that defense.
Those shock me.
But none of them are getting done. You're in the last year of McCarthy. This thing really feels like the wheels are just going to fall off this thing because now not only are you not getting things done, you haven't been able to bring in new talent, but this can start to become a distraction.
Yeah. Well, especially for someone like Lamb, who you kind of saw it bubbling over, I guess, at the very, end and in the playoff game. You're like, here's a guy who's never been a distraction and you somehow create him into a distraction. That's just crazy. And it's weird the parallels between like the Cowboys and San Francisco when we're saying, hey, you've got one more year and then all these people are gone, except you don't have the success on one side. Like, we're not even talking about Dallas making the Super Bowl. We're like, San Francisco can make a real run if they get this whole thing, under control. But Dallas, we had a Dallas Cowboys person on the show and we talked bad about Dallas for 20 minutes. And she was like, Yep, you're right. That's when I was like, yeah, this season could be bad.
I felt bad for her.
I did.
Like, I was trying not to pile on that because I was literally just like, what are you guys going to do? She's like, no.
I know you're thinking something over there, Michelle.
Yeah, I'm going to wait. I can't fall for this because as long as Jerry Jones has money, he's going to try to do something because it's all he does. It's not always a great decision that gets made at the end of the day, long term. But it's like, okay, Right now, I'm not hearing anything. I'm looking for it almost every day. I'm see if there's any kind of changes in the division, free agency, that kind of stuff. I'm like, I haven't heard a thing. Maybe you guys heard something. I haven't heard anything. I'm like, okay, I'm
I
just
mean, they
waiting.
don't have any money.
I think I know. I'm saying collapse wise, that makes sense for it to be collapsed. I'm like, I need to wait until it's actually like, like when the body's in the ground, then I can start, okay. But until that happens, I'm like, nah, I ain't falling for this. And then I get overconfident, put something on air, record it out here on YouTube, and these boys come back here and still win the division. No. I'm gonna stay right here. I'm gonna wait.
They're not gonna win their division.
Complete.
But Raj, they're still a playoff team.
Yeah. The talent is still there.
They still have too many pieces. They're a playoff team. They're probably a 6th seed, maybe a 7th seed.
Yeah.
And it's because like their key talent is there.
Right.
Their secondary talent, they're like their number 2 receiver type stuff. Those are the things that they lost. Yeah. And so they're still gonna win a bunch of games. Yeah. It's just not going to be what it was last year, or the year before, right? Like it's not going to be that 12-5 season. They're not going to have that. Right. They are a 10-win team. They're
just based on talent alone, and they're pretty good at like piling on against bad teams. So the stats will look really, really good at times. But I don't think they win the division either. Plus, also, I mean, the way that division goes, whoever won it last year, you're not going to pick to win the next year anyway.
Exactly.
But
well, and the Eagles got better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Eagles did smart things in their offseason. They addressed exactly their shortcomings from last year. So, I mean, they had an incredibly good offseason, and Dallas was like, fire sale.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I'm listening to the Dallas podcast, and they're talking about, the XFL people that they're bringing in and undrafted free agents. And I was like, these should not be whole podcast episodes. Like, I felt bad. I felt bad for those guys. They seemed like 2 good guys, and you could just tell at times they're like, I don't want to trash the team that we're covering, but what's going on here?
I mean, we've seen some good stuff out of the XFL guys. So, I mean, maybe they come in and show out. I'm not putting a lot of stock in that.
That's what I was going to say. That won't be on the commercial. Like, hey, watch the XFL guys, maybe. And I think if you're like thinking that you're going to the Super Bowl, those are not the plugins that you're wanting to have to rely on at all.
No. And of all of the ones that got, because there was, I want to say there was 180 UFL, I guess.
I keep calling them XFL.
That went to camps around the league.
Right.
So, I mean, 180 of them got called up to, various tryouts and stuff. So, I mean, inevitably a couple of them will hit, right?
Right. And to be fair, like I said, I'm rooting for them. I just don't feel like, like the 49ers would be relying on one of them. You know what I mean? But like other these teams are looking for depth. They're just looking for maybe a spark somewhere. Yeah, I could see that. But the Cowboys, I would not think would have to be one of those teams. So it's just weird. And then, like I said, seeing episodes dedicated to it, I'm like, I skipped past that one. I said, I can't.
Doesn't inspire confidence.
Yeah.
Like if it's my favorite team, and they're like, yeah, we just signed a bunch of USFL guys. It's like, all right, cool. Man.
It depends on where they end up playing at.
Right.
On the Cowboys. I can see the Cowboys still doing this because it's just the Cowboys. They just.
Yeah, that's that whole.
The Cowboys is already anxiety.
Hope it pays off.
Yeah, like maybe like punt return, that kind of thing. Something like that.
Right.
Sure.
They ain't getting nobody to be behind CD Lamb as a wide receiver. That's not.
No.
That's not how it's going to happen. It's like special team stuff. I can see that happening.
Hmm.
And why not? You got the chance. They played. I mean, they played well. We didn't like how some things went in the UFL, but I mean, you guys are football players, man. A lot of them are really, really good, man. They just weren't good enough on the NFL level at the time that they tried it. But
right.
Maybe they learned something in the UFL. Maybe they're ready to come out here and support an NFL team, maybe via special teams and earn a spot. And maybe who knows, might get some new life breathed into their career. And hey.
Yep. And that's where I would expect it to happen,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, when you think about how many players made it to rosters based on just special teams play, I mean, and a lot of them went on to be stars.
Yep.
Where they didn't get an actual shot. They're just like, get out there on special teams and, prove something. So, I mean, basically if you can get that crest on the shirt, you got a shot. What you do with that shot, well, we'll see.
Better than that star on the helmet, but whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I went with the crest just because that could be any team. The star on the helmet's just one.
I'm definitely looking forward to this season. This could be. I just kind of want to see it implode. Game 8, and they're losing 30-0 to like the Cardinals, and you're just like, what's going on? Fantastic. McCarthy's getting fired at halftime.
It was last year. Wasn't that last year?
They ain't get blown out by him, right? They wasn't a close one, but I want to see it in a blowout. I want to see CeeDee Lamb throwing a helmet at Dak and Mr. Miles Leonard.
I'm bringing my popcorn for that.
Oh my goodness, I'll cover that.
Oh yeah.
I just, it just has the feel of we're waiting for one really bad thing to happen, and then like everybody's mad. You've got like 3 guys waiting to get extensions to get money, and you're not paying any of them, and they're like. These guys talk. They're just sitting around going like, what's going to happen? You kept a coach that you probably should have fired last year. You went ahead and kept him after a disaster in the playoffs when you had already publicly said, hey, we need some success here. Like none of what's going on makes sense. So I'm just waiting for some. And Jerry Jones escapes all of it. So he'll pick a scapegoat and he'll say something bad about whoever.
Well, McCarthy's out the door anyway. Right. You have sound bites coming out where he's fed up with Jerry Jones.
And that's his buddy.
Right? Like you're straight up getting fired. Like unless you win a Super Bowl, you're gone. And even if you win a Super Bowl, that doesn't mean you can stay. We've seen him fire coaches that have won Super Bowls. So, I mean, I don't expect good things out of Dallas. I do expect them to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
But
because the talent's undeniable. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of talent on the roster, but you're right. This is one just mishap away from being a full-on dumpster fire, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that Dak 4 interception game where it just like all comes crashing down.
Yeah,
like, let me be fair. Like I like Dak. Don't get me wrong. I'm not wishing bad things on him. But I could see that being the catalyst for like.
You're not wishing bad things on him, but you're not wishing good things on him.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not. Yeah.
I want 5 interceptions from you.
Yeah, me and Dak ain't
5
cool,
interceptions on you and nobody else but you.
I mean, if that happens, I'll be entertained. I mean, Dak will get his money somehow next year anyway. He is a great regular season quarterback, so somebody will pay him to do something.
Someone's going to pay him. Like, so when you look at the numbers over the last, I want to say it was 55 starts, something like that. His numbers are almost identical to Mahomes.
Yeah.
Right. Almost identical. The only thing that is different, he actually had a higher passer rating than Mahomes. And completion percentage, I think, was almost exactly the same too. Same amount of touchdowns, all that. Obviously, the playoff picture is wildly different between the two.
Right.
But when you're talking regular season numbers, I mean, it's almost the exact same all the way down the chart.
Like if you, without looking, obviously this could be 1000% wrong, but if you just told me that Dak had, a top 5 season last year offensively and Mahomes was like somewhere in the middle of the pack, like I would totally, just based on what we saw from those teams and what we expected from Kansas City, I would say, oh yeah, Dak was probably blowing them out of the water this past year. And then, but when it came to playoffs, I'd be like,
well, but when you figure 50 plus starts, like that's not an isolated incident. Like that's 3 years.
No, I agree. I think, and like I said, for if you wanted to win some games in the regular season, Dak is definitely your guy, especially before the ankle injury where he had a little more mobility, I think.
Sure.
I mean, I think he was just phenomenal. But I even said this. I was listening to the Cowboys podcast after this one, and they said it in the nicest way possible. What goes on with him during playoff games? Like he just doesn't like look at, and he even makes comments, in interviews like, "Oh, I'm just, going through stuff too fast," or like he admits something is wrong in the playoff games.
Yeah,
I mean, that's from his mouth and from people who cover the team. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, if he could ever figure out the playoff thing, although to be fair, I don't blame the Green Bay one on him. Like he didn't play a flawless game by any means, but his defense didn't get off the bus.
Right. But I mean, you still had 2 interceptions in the first half. Like that didn't help. I feel like a lot of his stats were inflated by like that fourth quarter where Green Bay thought they were just gonna hold on and then all of a sudden Dallas was gangbusters. But he also didn't start that game off phenomenally. When your defense is playing terrible, you need a couple good possessions and 2 interceptions.
And that's the problem with Dak, right? He's that like Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco guy, right? Like if your defense can play lights out, they can win.
Yeah.
If you need him to be special once or twice a game, you can win. If you need him to carry the team, not that guy.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You can't have defensive efforts like we saw against Green Bay.
Right.
I mean, to be fair, there's not many quarterbacks that could have overcome what that defense did.
Right.
Even without those 2 interceptions, like that's a tall task when every time Green Bay is catching a ball, you don't have a defender in the screen.
Right.
Like, it's not like, oh, it was just out of reach and, the timing was just off. It was like, is that dude 5 yards away? I feel like any of the 3 of us could make that completion if the defender is 5 yards away. You're not throwing dimes. You're just like, you could have final year of Peyton Manning out there throwing ducks and complete those passes.
Let me ask you a question. I don't know the answer to this. So I'm asking you guys. You probably saw some of his games before he got drafted. Before that got drafted, I forgot what team he came from.
Mississippi State.
Fourth round. That's what I thought. Mississippi State, 4th round pick, I think it was, right?
Yeah, 4th round pick. And the only reason I remember that is because he was number 1. They got to in the playoffs number 1, like when the first playoff rankings, and then came to Tuscaloosa and it was ugly. So that's why I will always remember.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh, let me ask you this. So did he do the things at Mississippi State that people are expecting him to do here in Dallas?
No. So let me answer that with this. This man was on a team that was ranked number 1 in the nation, right? Okay. First playoff ranking, and was still drafted in the 4th round. That tells you a lot about what you were getting with Dak in Mississippi State.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that's it. No, I think the reason why we talk about Dak so much is he has played really well, but it's because he was a 4th round pick. If he was a 1st round pick and had the playoff record that he had, I think everything would be like totally different right now. We'd be like, well, we're expecting him to do what he's doing in the regular season, but if he's going to lose in the playoffs and we drafted him, 1st overall, like what's going on here? So I think perception is a huge thing when it comes to Dak. So the problem is he's played too well to like ever just cut and say, okay, we're moving on, but not well enough to get you over the top. So you're just kind of stuck in that middle. We're going to win a lot of games every year. We're going to, host a playoff game every other year, and we're going to flame out.
Yeah.
But
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can't cut him outright. It's too good for that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, no, I mean, when you think of the star on the helmet, I mean, you look at his numbers and his playoff success, and you're just like, oh, cool. They just got Romo 2.0.
Yeah.
A little bit more durable than Romo, right? Because Romo got hurt a lot. I would say that Romo is probably actually better at figuring out defenses.
Yeah.
Right. Like he definitely has the football IQ is higher with Romo. He just was made of glass and couldn't stay healthy, and would also melt down in the playoffs. Like I was at a game where he fumbled the snap where he could have beat my Seahawks.
Yeah,
and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I remember that. So something though, Mr. Hughes mentioned on this before. It's like when your team keeps melting down, and it doesn't matter who's under center, who's on there. It's like. And Jerry Jones is, I mean, I know you can't like say, hey, he's causing what's on the field, but isn't it strange that no matter what they're going through in the last, 30 years, we keep getting the same results no matter who we're cycling in here and out? Yep. It just
the rosters, tons of talent.
All the time.
They've had coaches at times.
Yep.
And I mean, the only common denominator with this team is
the guy put it together. It's weird though, because there hasn't been a team really, at least in a while, for the Cowboys where you thought, man, that roster just looks terrible. It just looks like they've been stacked. And then when they were middling kind of early on, he got Amari Cooper, and that kind of jump started you know, Dak. So it's like he goes and gets the pieces.
There were a couple of years of the Garrett era.
Right.
That you looked at the roster and you're like, this is probably not a great team. And he still figured out how to get them 8-8, right? So I mean, it's not like they were horrendous, but when you looked at the roster, you're like, yeah, they're not beating anybody, especially during that era because the NFC West was so strong.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, okay, like the rest of the divisions are going to have one team representing, right? Because you were going to get at least 2 out of the West. You know, because that was at the height of Seattle, and the Niners were good. They had Cap, and the Rams always found a way to be scrappy. So, I mean, it was, there were times during that Jason Garrett era that, you know, they weren't a very good roster. And then, of course, you compound that with Garrett just wasn't a great coach.
Right.
Super supportive, though. I mean,
To her point, you know, I'm not on to the fact that I said that before. I just see it. I see what other teams too. I mean, I can look at the New York Mets, even though I wasn't, you know, the biggest fan of them really, but I saw it so many times. Like you keep cycling guys out and changing coaches, and they had big turnover with their head coaches, the managers. It was like a lot. And the only common denominator that still hung around was your boy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He just stayed there as owner. I mean, he owned the team, so he has to. But it's like, man, at some point you gotta look in the mirror and say, you know what part do I play in this? What can I do differently? Right. I mean, you gotta care about this is your product, your situation, and you're making money from it. But it's like if you want to get to the pinnacle and really be spoken of historically well, you gotta make some changes. It's like I don't understand. Well, talk about Jerry Jones and his attitude. We discussed it many times. We know what it is.
Yeah.
But he has to take a look at and step back.
I don't think he's capable of doing it.
No, he's definitely not.
I hope he is.
And like we've said on multiple shows, you know, he should absolutely still be involved in the draft process because he gets thrown in the door.
It's not about that.
He needs to bounce out as soon as that's done and let his coaches do their thing.
Yeah.
He needs to stop hiring yes men.
Dalton Schultz says that the culture over there is a zoo. I mean, that really tells you all that you need to know about what's going on over there.
I feel like that's very similar with the Colorado Buffaloes, right? They get talent, but that atmosphere has to be a zoo because every player that is transferred out, they're just like, man, that is not the jam.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we'll have a Colorado Buffaloes guy on next week, so that should be an interesting talk.
Looking forward to that. Hey, speaking of stuff like that, Raj, if you are still watching, if you tune in to Coach's Corner today at 1 p.m. Pacific, we're going to have Dolphins assistant Rob Everett on the show. So we're gonna get a chat with him for a little bit. So if you happen to still be watching, you may want to check that one out.
Texting him now in case he's not.
Cool. But that does get us to the top of the hour. Obviously some topics we never got to, but fun conversation. Next week, we'll probably chat a little bit about Arch Manning staying with the Longhorns and of course the continuous slide of the Yankees and the Mariners. So stay tuned for that. We will be talking about the Finns. Absolutely. But,
Roger's a little excited.
It would be weird
if we weren't. You need to calm down.
But so other than that, if you are watching on any of our YouTube channels, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps us bring content to you. And of course, if you're on Roku, stay tuned for the next hour. And of course, I will see you on Coast to Coast at 9 o'clock. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.